Channel open. Welcome back to WeeklyTrek, a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on March 21st, 2019, and is current through the Star Trek Discovery Season 2 episode, The Red Angel, so beware of spoilers. All right, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
WeeklyTrek is a 30-minute news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We're in a new golden age of Star Trek. There are 4 television shows in active production. We are still expecting an announcement of at least one more, and there's enough merchandise to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me, and I'll help you sort the real facts from a lot of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. And my guest this week is the unofficial Tinkerbell of Star Trek, Daryl. Daryl, welcome to WeeklyTrek.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So why do they call you the unofficial Tinkerbell of Star Trek?
Well, it actually started midway through season 1. Star Trek has had many incarnations, and I have seen them veer away from science and go into a little bit more fantasy with their technobabble. So I took it on myself to bring more science into Star Trek. Twitter has a wonderful platform, and the people in the Star Trek world creating the show are very interactive, and I just started bringing actual science to them, and they began using it. Disney has the Imagineers, which is their creative department, and so I sort of just did a little spin on that and developed Tinkerbell as a moniker.
Very cool, very cool. Well, Daryl, I ask my guests this question every week, but I want to know something that's got you feeling good about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
Which is awesome. I love that question. Thank you for asking. What I'm excited about most is the development of the hashtag #WeAreStarfleet. It's something we've been using a lot on Twitter, and everybody there has been getting a lot of support from other fans, sharing histories, sharing knowledge, sharing jokes. And we've all been trying to deal with the negativity and that sort of entered the fandom, and not necessarily squash it, but certainly give a better narrative and a more honest voice of those people that actually enjoy Star Trek Discovery. And for those that don't, encouraging them to look forward to the Picard series and other things that are coming, just to sort of just deal with it. We're Starfleet, and we'll keep going. The fandom's 50 plus years old.
I think that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the We Are Starfleet hashtag. It's definitely been very promoting of the inclusiveness of the franchise. And as you say, pushing back on some of the more toxic elements of social media that have sort of crept into some of the discussion about the show, which is unfortunate, but it's nice to know that there are happy warriors out there fighting the good fight and ensuring that the positivity remains, and that we're really focused on that aspect of it as well.
Exactly. There's always going to be your least favorite version and your absolute favorite version. And hopefully we'll get some more series going so that everybody can find their comfort zone.
Yes, absolutely. In a world in which there are going to be 5 Star Trek shows, it does seem like there should be something for everybody.
Exactly.
So my pick this week is actually from the most recent episode, The Red Angel, which I thought was a really nice episode. I think I was actually in the minority on that from having just scanned some of the reviews of the episode before we jumped on. But one of the things I really liked about this episode was the number of really nice one-on-one character scenes that we got. I counted 11 one-on-one scenes throughout the episode, ranging in length with really creative couplings of characters. And, there's been this kind of slow drumbeat of interest in seeing much more character development, much more of that sort of traditional, quote unquote, kind of talky Star Trek. And I think that was very much what this episode was. I mean, obviously there'll be a lot of focus on the last few seconds of the episode and the big reveal that we had, but I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this was a really nice character piece. So we will all be talking about the reveal of the identity of the Red Angel, but this was still a really solid character episode, and a lot of the Red Angel stuff will obviously play out in the next episode. So I really like that, and I hope that we see a lot more of that going forward in Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, and it was great to see the interplay between Spock and Burnham. The tongue-in-cheek is a great thing that they developed over a very short period of time, but to have that heart-to-heart, we are brother and sister talk without actually having the talk. I loved that. That was just amazing.
They have had some really nice scenes together, and I think Ethan Peck's performance as Spock has just been fabulous. I wasn't sure I had enough room in my heart for another Spock after the passing of Leonard Nimoy, and so I had a little bit of trepidation going into this season about the fact that we would be seeing another performance as Spock, but actually I've been really, really pleasantly surprised. I think Ethan Peck's done a really tremendous job with the role and has really been channeling Leonard Nimoy in many ways. So I'm 100% in for Ethan Peck's Spock and hope we get to see more of him.
Exactly. And honestly, to touch a little bit on that, I have to say the beard does help, because if he had looked too much like Spock, he wouldn't have looked like Spock. So having him look so different actually made it a little easier.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah, it did help kind of make the case that this was a character at a very different stage in his life. All right, well, with that, let's turn to the week's top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
So our first story this week isn't much of a story, but it got a lot of play, so we're going to talk about it anyway, which is a report out of Deadline.com that Anson Mount, who plays Captain Pike in Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, is not expected to return for a third season. Normally that would sound like it was big news, except for the fact that Anson Mount said publicly all the way back in December that he was only contracted for a second season of the show, and it was not expected that he was going to be a long-term fixture on Star Trek Discovery. And you even find that in the premiere of Season 2, the whole reason for him being on the Discovery, even though he's the captain of the Enterprise, is because the Enterprise was damaged in the season premiere and was not able to conduct the mission to investigate the red signals on its own. So we know that Pike will end up back on the Enterprise. Presumably that means that it will be the season finale. He also said at the December event, which was Christmas with the Captains at the Star Trek tour in Ticonderoga, New York, was that he was filming the season right up until the end. So we know that Pike will be in the show right up until the season finale. The other piece of the news article that was mildly interesting was also that Rebecca Romaine, who appeared in the fourth episode of the season as number one, is also not expected to return for season 3. But if Pike's not going to be in it and the Enterprise isn't going to be in it, it also makes sense that we would not see number one reprise her role in that either. But Daryl, how do you feel about Anson Mount as Captain Pike this season? Has he worked for you? And are you disappointed by the news that he will not be appearing in Discovery season 3?
I'm not disappointed. I totally expected it. However, I am hoping and angling for a spinoff. I definitely think the Enterprise under Pike's command is a very interesting show that a lot of fandom would really enjoy, especially due to the wonderful performances and the great writing. So Anson got a lot of interaction between the cast and crew for his portrayal. He developed a truly astounding, wonderful, wonderful character. And so I would edge for a spinoff more than him returning for another season. I hope that's where they take it, and I'm not bashful on that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are itching to see more of Anson Mount as Captain Pike, and I think I'm with them. I'd love to see more from this character in some other format. Somebody raised this really interesting idea, which is that one of the unannounced TV shows that was rumored when Alex Kurtzman signed his deal to expand the franchise was the Starfleet Academy idea that we haven't heard anything more about. And we do know that before his accident in which renders him disabled in the menagerie, Pike did spend some time working with cadets. So somebody raised this interesting question of, could it be the case that the Starfleet Academy show is still being kept under wraps because Anson Mount's Pike is going to have some role in that show, which I think would be really interesting. Of course, it's total speculation and probably ridiculous and won't happen. But actually, I think that would be a nice role for the actor and for the character. Wouldn't necessarily require him to be around all of the time. Could just do, sort of semi-occasional guest roles on the show. But yeah, I mean, if they were to decide also to do an Enterprise TV show, I think that would be fabulous too, because he has just been a really fabulous character.
He has. And Ethan Peck even mentioned that they've sort of developed a mentor kind of brotherly relationship on the set, not just because of who the characters are, but because of how motivational he is, how dedicated he is. He wowed everybody, honestly.
And if you're kicking off your cast with Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, and Rebecca Romaine, there's certainly nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
So our next story for the week is an interview with Hannah Cheesman, who played Airiam, who sadly passed away in last week's episode, Project Daedalus. And this was Hannah's exit interview with sci-fi.com, in which she talked about playing the character over the course of season 2. Airiam has now been played by 2 actresses, Sarah Mittick in season 1, and then Hannah Cheesman in season 2. Sarah Mittick is still around in Discovery. She transitioned to playing Lieutenant Nilsson, who's a human character, and has appeared in now 3 episodes of the season, and in the episode in The Red Angel, which we just watched, it just premiered tonight. There's a scene in which Nilsson actually takes over Airiam's station on the bridge of the Discovery. But we had this really nice interview with Hannah Cheesman, obviously Project Daedalus last week. We got much more character development for Airiam, found out more about who she was, what her background was, what her motivations were. A couple of interesting things I thought from the article. Obviously, there's been this big question on fans' minds around, why did Hannah Cheesman take over the role from Sarah Mittick? And it seems like we still don't really know why the change was made, but we do know that it seems to have been very positive. Hannah talked about how she and Sarah had a very positive relationship, that Sarah really helped Hannah kind of find the role and talked her through season 1, and in the same way that many characters have done, who sort of, they have these consoles they're at and they figure out which buttons do what, and Sarah kind of told Hannah which buttons she used to activate the spore drive, et cetera, et cetera. So nice to see that the 2 of them had a really positive relationship. The other thing I thought was really interesting was that the 2 actresses had something in common, which is that they're both trained dancers. And Airiam had that kind of very stylized movement to her that kind of, it wasn't quite the robot dance, but it did have sort of elements of that sort of very staccato, structured kind of form and movement. And Hannah was talking about how for both her and for Sarah playing the role, having that background and experience as a trained dancer was very beneficial to being able to adopt the physicality of the character. So I thought that was really interesting. But Daryl, was there anything from this interview that particularly resonated with you?
I really enjoyed the part where she discussed how Data was a model for her, and she actually watched the show and enjoyed his character. That helped her design her performance. And Brett Spinner's portrayal of Data as not being a robot, as being a really enjoyable discovery of what it means to be human. And I think she nailed that. She completely made Airiam somebody that was really a person you could fall in love with in a very short period of time, with just some very simple or seemingly simple performances. She captured us. She really did a wonderful job. I enjoyed Sarah Mitchie when she was doing her portrayal, but she didn't get a lot of speaking roles, so it was great to see the character get fleshed out this way. But that really captured me. And then I actually had to stop midway through the article and go see Calypso again, because there was just this little tiny ringing bell in the back of my head about the AI in that particular short trek. I have to say that if anything, the end of the article was talking about how the character's memories got downloaded, and Cheesman was hoping that that gets used somewhere down the line. I have to say, I have a sneaking suspicion that she ends up being Zora.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people speculating about that, and I think it would be a nice way of tying everything together, and certainly would kind of provide that spark of humanity for the Zora character that we saw in the Calypso short. But I thought Hannah Cheesman was amazing. Hopefully they managed to find a way to bring Kenneth Mitchell back even after his character died. And I hope they are able to find an opportunity for Hannah Cheesman to appear in some other role on Star Trek Discovery, because I thought she did a really great job.
That's a long-standing tradition. It would be lovely to see them back. Absolutely.
100%. I'm on board with you. So our next story relates to Deep Space Nine and a fan attempt to upscale Deep Space Nine into high definition. So we talked last week about the DS9 documentary and about how for the episode clips in the DS9 documentary, the team are in the process of working with CBS Digital to go back to the original masters and to upgrade those into high definition. But we also know that's an extremely expensive and extremely difficult process. And part of the reason why Deep Space Nine has not received the same treatment that the original series and the Next Generation got is because it's so expensive, and because the home media market for Blu-rays started to disintegrate around the same time that the Next Generation Blu-rays were coming out. So there just hasn't been the customer demand for it, even though there's certainly plenty of demand amongst our Star Trek fans. So one of the interesting things is the question becomes, as technology becomes more and more sophisticated, will there be a cheaper way of upscaling the show into high definition than going back to the original masters, rerunning them and converting them into high definition, and then basically reconstructing the episodes from the ground up? And a fan has discovered a way of using artificial intelligence, so hopefully not one that ultimately will rise up to destroy all sentient life in the galaxy, but a version of AI, and has done some homemade upscaling of Deep Space Nine into high definition. This was written about on IO9. It was also written about on TrekMovie.com. And there you can see comparison images of the two, of the pre-upscaling and the post-upscaling, and some video comparison. I will say it's not as good as the Next Generation Blu-rays, where you can just really see that really crystal clear Blu-ray image, especially in comparison to the muddy standard definition version. But if a full remaster is not on the table, it would be really nice for CBS to explore some more cost-effective ways of improving the picture quality so that DS9 is future-proof for future generations who aren't necessarily going to want to watch standard definition video, just as in the same way kids today are very reticent to go back and watch something in black and white. Probably won't be quite that stark, but CBS, particularly as video technology continues to advance, the picture continues to get better, the Deep Space Nine video quality remains the same. But Daryl, did you get an opportunity to see the video? Did you see much of a difference between the standard def and the homemade upscaling HD?
I did not. Sorry, I ran out of a little bit of time there near the end of my studies, but I thought it was a very novel way. I have been an executive assistant in the Silicon Valley off and on for many years. So cutting edge technology is definitely always changing, always evolving. And one of the developments that has been ever evolving on this edge and on topic is IBM's Watson, Watson is the official AI recognized planet-wide. So it may or may not be cost effective, but IBM is definitely, and a lot of the people in that particular part of the industry are looking for ways to help. So who knows, maybe the AI processing of DS9 might end up getting a little boost in a zone that we've never considered before. Maybe even they haven't considered before. So definitely by having someone bring forward an idea that was never considered, now we can look at it. Maybe there hasn't been a large outcry, but DS9 has fans that span every generation and are probably stronger than even Voyager fans. So you never know what everybody will go for. And sometimes that's a little difficulty. Like I said, seeing a hashtag like We Are Starfleet, we can begin to see people solidify and make coherent goals as a community. So hopefully that will be something of interest. I think it's a great idea. Even if the quality isn't perfect, well, that's just part of the entire fandom. I remember back in the day when people did things in their basements. We all just loved it and ate it up. And now people are making their own sound stages. I just love it. So it's great to see everybody stretch. I hope they do more of it, even if it's not, even if it ends up being somebody's black and white somewhere down the way. It's a great goal. It was a wonderful series. It wasn't my personal favorite, but DS9 absolutely deserves to have that kind of attention.
Well, switching gears back to Discovery, and we have some happy news, which is that Mary Wiseman, who plays Sylvia Tilly in Star Trek Discovery, has gotten married. And the New York Times did a really nice write-up of the story of her relationship with her new husband, Noah Averbach-Katz. And they talked about how both of them are actors. They met at Juilliard, where they both studied drama. And because they're both actors, working actors, and because Mary is a series regular on Star Trek Discovery, they do spend a significant amount of time apart. And there was actually some really interesting marriage advice, which I thought was really good, which is that if you find yourself in that situation, it's important to ensure that you are still seeing each other regularly, even if it's just for a weekend. And they say they have a rule to try not to spend more than 2 consecutive weeks apart at any one time before they see each other again. So wishing Mary Wiseman and her husband Noah all the best. Are you happy for the happy couple, Daryl?
Absolutely. The industry has always been really tough. It's tough to break in. Once you get in, it's even tougher to have some kind of normalcy. Mary has been to LA. She's been to San Diego for the Comic-Con. She went to, they work in Toronto, Canada on the set. She is essentially an international star. So she is quite an involved person to marry. And I just applaud the whole thing. I think it's a wonderful commitment. And everybody on the set seems to be very dedicated to supporting spouses. We saw that Anson Mount's wife arrived on the set, and she actually ended up with more hugs and more attention than he did. He got a little jealous. But, that's part of that We Are Starfleet. It's just in the past, when actors hooked up to Star Trek, almost everything would sort of dry up around them. And I think this wonderful brand new show of Star Trek Discovery is truly helping actors have a sense of normalcy on the set, have a sense of life outside the show. So they're making huge efforts as a production company to support their actors. And I think it's just wonderful. I think it's one of the best things I've seen.
Indeed. We are very, very happy for Mary and her new husband. So I have 2 small news items that I'll just bang through really quickly. First of all, if you've been an attendee at a Creation Entertainment event, I highly encourage you to go check your credit card bill for fraudulent charges. It seems like there has been, and Creation has now acknowledged that there has been a security breach associated with their credit card payment system. I myself have been hit. I think pretty much everybody I know who has attended one of the Creation Star Trek conventions, like the Star Trek Las Vegas convention, has had some kind of fraudulent charges on their credit card. I'm waiting for my new credit card to arrive, which I'm rather annoyed about, but glad that I caught the charges before any more were added. So if you have not checked your credit card statement recently and you have been an attendee at Star Trek Las Vegas, I would strongly encourage you to do so and to be on the lookout for charges for the next few weeks. The story, the people first started noticing fraudulent charges last week. I did not get hit until Wednesday of this week. So they're still rolling out over time. So just be careful. And then the last thing is, I've talked about the Picard show a lot over the last few weeks, so I didn't want to dwell too much on it in this episode, but we did get confirmation this week for something that I had said a few weeks ago, which is there were some stories going around implying that potentially the name of the Picard show was going to be Star Trek Picard based on some comments that Sonequa Martin Green had made. But this week, Hanelle Culpepper, who will be the director for the first 2 episodes of the Picard series, actually said on Twitter that that was not going to be the name of the Picard show, that they had not announced the name, but that it was not going to be Star Trek Picard. So we still don't know what the name is. Hopefully they will announce it soon, though I don't think it will be that soon, and we'll get to that when I get to my speculation. But not Star Trek Picard. It will be Star Trek something else. We just don't know what that else will be. Well, we've talked about the facts, and now let's get to the fun part.
You make some very good points, Captain. But it's still all speculation and theory.
So each week, I and my guest will offer a wish, a theory, a piece of speculation about what we want to see from the future of Star Trek. So Daryl, give me your theory for this week or wish. What would you like to see out of the future of the Star Trek franchise?
Well, I had 2, actually.
Let's do it.
So the first one was regarding the captain of the Discovery, the captain coming up. So eventually, once we'll get to season 3, we'll get back to Discovery trying to obtain its new captain, either on Vulcan or the captain might just get tired and come to them. So there have been lots of speculations on who that would be. Everything Trek, which is a YouTuber, he mentioned Garth of Iscar. And we saw him in one of the TOS episodes on an asylum planet. I thought that was a very unique idea. Wouldn't rule it out, but if I had a wish, I would love to see the next captain be of military family. Maybe a descendant of John Glenn would be a wonderful tribute. The Discovery is actually named from the space shuttle Discovery, and John Glenn was it was his 38th. It was Discovery's 38th flight that John Glenn came on board at the age of 77 and helped them with their research, and it was his second space flight. So I'd love to see a nod there. I think that would be awesome to show that Star Trek is connected to the past as much as it represents the future. So that's a wish out there. And my second wish would be that the franchise begins to enlarge its own universe. I'd love to see some kind of outreach to Paramount, maybe even the Sci-Fi Channel. We've seen other franchises enlarge their universe, and I think it would be a really nice, interesting new dynamic if CBS went in that direction as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, with Anson Mount leaving Discovery, we will need a new captain to take over, and it could be a new character all over again, or it could be one of the existing characters. I guess it's an open question as to whether Saru is at the point whether he would be appropriate to take command of the ship, especially in his new, more confident form now that he has evolved a little bit this season. So I guess we will see. There's lots of fun stuff ahead, though. I can't wait to find out.
Yeah, I think Saru would be a great choice. I think Doug Jones has done an incredible job with the character. Evolution of the character is fabulous. I don't know if the Cannonites seems to be their latest name. The people addicted to the canon would go for it, since supposedly there's no alien as acting as captain during this time frame. But the fans certainly adore him. It's a great idea.
So my theory this week is actually coming back to the discussion we were just having about the Picard show, which is that obviously they've done a very good job of keeping information about the characters, even the name of the show under wraps. We only know 3 actors who've been cast alongside Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Patrick Stewart. And I've been mulling on this past week. When will we learn more? When will we learn the name of the show? When will we learn who these other characters are? And I'm starting to think that we won't know more about the show until an inevitable panel at San Diego Comic-Con in July. If they've held on to the information about the show this long, why not wait another 4 months?
Exactly.
At which point they'll only be 2.5 months into filming to tell us a lot more about what the show will be. So for folks who are hoping that we are about to get an information dump on this show, I think we might still be waiting a little bit longer. So let's be patient. But my guess will be once that panel does come at San Diego Comic-Con, if we are waiting until then to find out more information about the show, we will find out quite a significant amount all at once. So that will be, hopefully, very much worth the wait. Do you have a theory or a wish for Discovery or the future of the franchise that you'd like to share? Tweet them to me at WeeklyTrek, and I might feature your theory in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Daryl, for joining me today. Daryl, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
They can find me on Twitter. I'm listed as Miss Daryl .v for victory. And I'm also listed as Tinkerbell Imaginaire.
And you can find this show on Twitter at WeeklyTrek and me personally at Alexander T. Perry. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And please check out some of the other great shows on the Tricorder Transmissions. And if you like our shows, please also consider becoming a Patreon of Tricorder, which you can find at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And lastly, if you're looking for Star Trek news on the internet, I hope you will turn to trekcore.com. Well, thank you, Daryl. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper.